Okay, now this is the last part, measurement of time. At the end of this section, you should be able to describe how to measure a short period of time with appropriate accuracy using appropriate instrument. How do we tell time? We can tell time by observing events that repeat at regular intervals or periods. Okay, you can see from seasons, okay, and then phases of the moon, sunsets, and position of the sun. The SI unit for measuring time is the second. Okay, for the second, let's see a more precise way to measure a fixed interval of time is to use a pendulum. Okay, you can see the picture here. How many times the pendulum move from the starting point R to S and then go back to R. So when it's going from R to S back to R, we call it 1. Okay, so one what? One oscillation. One complete to and fro. Yeah, that means to and from R to S, S to R. Okay, or R from S. That is what we call one oscillation. So the time for one complete oscillation is known as the period. The period is dependent on the length of the pendulum. What do you mean by the length? This one. Okay. So the length will determine the what is that? The period. So the longer the length, the longer the period. What do we use to measure time? We can use not only pendulums like the previous example, we can also use stopwatches and then the clocks that we use to measure the time intervals using the periodic motion. The accuracy of an electronic stopwatch is 0.01 second. And then due to human reaction time, the time measured using a stopwatch usually has an error of about 0.3 seconds to 0.5 seconds. Why? Whenever we see something stops, usually then we will react by start to push the button of a stopwatch. This usually will create a time difference or error at about 0.3 to 0.5 seconds. Okay, and then how can this error be minimized? Okay, let's see when we would like to calibrate a simple pendulum. So in this picture, you can see a retort stand and then clamp and also the pendulum. How can a pendulum be used to tell time? As the time taken to complete one swing is fixed, by determining the number of swings, a time interval can be determined. Okay, first we need to calibrate a pendulum. How to calibrate? Let's see. Record the time taken by the pendulum to make 20 oscillations. Okay, so we have to count. Okay, 1, back to R, S to back, okay, back again, until 20 times. Okay, after that, you repeat again by using different lengths of the pendulum. Okay, and then you have to find the average of T or time T taken for one oscillation. Okay, now let's try to see the graph. Okay, record your data in a table. Okay, don't forget just now you take for time of 2 oscillations. Okay, first T1. Okay, that means using the first length of pendulum. After that, the second pendulum. Okay, after that, you have the average. Okay, and then you can count for T divided by S. Okay, and then you also have the graph of T squared divided by S squared. So if we see the plotted graph of T squared against the length, it should form a straight line. Okay, and then if we see again, the length of the pendulum correspond to a period of 1s can be read off the graph. Okay, so it should be corresponding. The long, okay, the longer the length, the longer the period, as I've told you. Okay, we can see from the picture. By using a pendulum of this length, we can count the number of oscillations and from there determine the time interval. Okay, so we have studied about the length, okay, and then also about the time. But we are not going to study too much about the mass, temperature, electric current, amount of substance, and luminous intensity. But you have to know these SI units, okay? But we will study this further in the next chapters. But overall, as a summary of this chapter. We have the time of SI unit is S. We can measure by using pendulums, clocks, stopwatches based on the periodic motions called oscillations. And also for counting length, we can use the tape measure, meter rule, vernier calipers, micrometer, screw gauge that has different precision for each, and then the measuring range also differ by the instruments. Okay, for listening to these videos and watching for chapter 1 measurement, and see you again on the next chapter. Goodbye.